Hey, hello and welcome to the show. It's me, JP, and it is time for JP's product pick of the week. Thank you so much for stopping by. And by you, I mean not only people watching, but also people in the chat. I've got my YouTube chat over there. I can say hey, and I can see you, or at least what you type. And our Discord chat. If you're wondering where our chat is happening, that's the place to be if you're on Twitch or Facebook or somewhere like that, and you're like, boy, it's awful quiet here. Why don't you head on over to adafruit.it/discord. You will get an instant invite, and then you can jump into the live broadcast chat channel, which is that one right there. Hello and welcome. So let's see, before I go any further, what I want to do is let you know here on JP's product pick of the week, I like to send you to a URL or a QR code, and that's going to take you to the product pick so you can see what it is, and more importantly, you can get a huge discount on the product pick. I'm going to clean my glasses. And that is going to require no coupon code or secret password or a puzzle to solve, a room to escape from, none of that. All you have to do is put the item in your cart, up to 10 of them, no resellers please, and you will get the discount during this show. There's no discount after the show, just during the show. So get ready if it looks like something you're interested in. But before I go any further on this, what I'll do is have Lady Ada tell us all about it. Take it away, Lady Ada.
This is a feather accessory. I just love having a feather accessory every week, and this is this week's feather accessory. This is a terminal block wing. So this is kind of like an underwing. It has a prototyping area, but more importantly, it has terminal blocks for everything. And so it comes as a kit, you solder it together, and when you're done, you basically can plug in your feather, and then you have two big screw terminal strips on either side that break out all of the pins, and there's also an on-off switch, which I'll demo. And it's just like really handy. People just love this stuff for wiring fast, either permanent or temporary connections. You can do either. If you have an installation and you want to just like have wires going to a motor controller or to something else, and size isn't important, you don't mind it a little bit bigger. This is great. You get a little bit of prototyping area, all the terminal blocks, extra power and ground connections, and then an on-off switch. So this is it. I just have the Huzzah feather plugged into it. So yeah, you have terminal blocks, and then you have headers to plug in. You can solder it directly in, but this way you have space for like the battery connector. And I just have it with an LED connected. So this is the screw terminals. They're pretty easy to use. You just use any Phillips head or flathead mini screwdriver, and then you can connect and disconnect stuff. So like wires and components. You can use probably like, I think like 16 to 30 gauge wire, something like that. You know, pretty much the most common wires that you'll need. And then, so you can, you basically just plug into USB on your feather as normal, and then you can turn it on and off with this switch. So I wasn't gonna add the switch, but I was like, you know what, that might be handy to actually have a mechanical switch on there. So it cuts power on and off to the feather. So it can be handy if you're prototyping and you wanna power cycle the whole setup. So that's it. I mean,
the terminal blocks is nice.
It's just like, it's really nice. I mean, like this is one of the things that's like the benefit of having the feather standard, because all of the feathers have the same pinouts. I don't have to worry about like, I have to make one of these for the Bluetooth one, and one for the phone, and one for the Ethernet, and one for the Wi-Fi. All of them are completely compatible. It's completely like, use whichever one you want. They will all fit. They all have the same core pinouts, and then the rest of the pins aren't labeled. You'll have to just look those up. Okay. This is also an update. This is the terminal block FeatherWing, which we made almost a year ago, but now it comes fully assembled. So before we had it as a kit, and that was fine. People would put it together, and we never heard any complaints. But if it's a terminal block adapter, it's probably for people who don't want to solder. You want to plug and then have wires connect to it. So it now comes fully assembled. You plug any feather into it. Works with all of our feathers, or even our feather wings if you so wish. There's a little prototyping area. And yeah, just comes soldered up, same price.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the stuff right there. So here, I've got one right here. I will reveal, and then let's talk about this. So, ta-da! This is the updated version, which actually, sometimes I think these come with blue, sometimes with black screw terminals when it's the kit, when it was the kit form. Now I think we're just sending them out with black. Looks super cool. So let's have a look at this and do this right. My product pick of the week is the terminal block FeatherWing. This is fantastic. This breaks out all the pins of your Feather plus some extras onto screw terminals so you can add wiring and get a really nice and secure connection. So looking back again at the down shooter on this, there you go. So check this out. This is your typical Feather socket, and then if you take a Feather like so and just set it down into those little pins or little socket headers. Now, every one of those pins that you might be tempted to use on a breadboard and have wires fall out on you and then it's sad, instead this is happy because you get these nice secure terminal blocks that you can screw down wires. It works best with stranded wires, I find, and a whole bunch of extras. So as Lady Ada mentioned, we have a nice prototyping area there so you can lay down a little circuit. And some of that's even accessible. So depending on your needs, you could probably put a little extra output for something like MIDI down here below. And you get extras. Like I said, there are some pair of 3-volt and grounds up here that you don't normally get access to on the board. We usually just have 3-volt and ground down here. We get the power switch. This is actually, I believe this is connected to enable. So this will turn off the board without it needing to be a high current switch. It just sets the board to shut down, disables its own 3-volt connection on the board. And you've got mounting holes here so you can connect it to a project. It also has mounting holes so you can use some standoffs, like nylon standoffs are particularly good for this, to connect the Feather to the board. So the whole thing ends up being really secure. And before I do a demo, actually, I want to talk about how this thing came to be. So actually, I just noticed Toddbot mentioned in our Discord, hey, it looks a lot like a wing shield. So here's the history of this. If you step back in time a little bit, gosh, I don't know what the year was, maybe 2009, 2010, something like that. The Arduino 2009 was the king. And I was using these. There was kind of no easy way to prototype with these other than running wires to a breadboard or to a proto board and then building your project. Then along came proto boards, shields, so you could put a shield on top of that and have some proto area solder directly to. But I had been playing around with the Make shield, or rather the Make controller, which was a controller and breakout board that had a short little life there. Which used screw terminals for just about everything. I said, hey, I'd love to have that on Arduino. So I chatted with a friend of mine, Brian Jepson, and Todd Kurt. We got together and built and sold these little kits here. These were the screw shield wing shields. And you can see just what they do. They give you stacky headers. You could plug them into your Arduino, but leave the middle of it, the juicy center, available so that we didn't have to worry about things like the reset switch and some of the additional connectors there. Could still get to everything, but you had this area where you could still plug in jumper cables if you had to for some reason, but really the idea was to use these little terminal blocks. Then Lady Ada revised this at one point, as did SparkFun. Both of them sold these and some other places. They both came up with this idea of, okay, forget your little wing thing. Let's actually just use a big proto board in the middle and put these terminal breakouts there. These are super great, and we actually still sell these. Disclaimer, I get to split $1 with Brian and Todd every time one of these sells through Adafruit. So if I promote this too heavily, I could get rich. The product we have here today is really the natural extension of this, but more into the Feather format world. So as you can see there, I still plug in the microcontroller in the middle, but now you get these great screw terminals to plug into. So for a little demo, I wanted to show how you use these. What's the point of this, right? So here's a nice example I put together. I think it's a nice example I put together yesterday. So I've got a Feather here, and I want to connect a bunch of stuff to it. So I want to try out this really cool analog throttle here that we've got, analog potentiometer throttle. And this needs to be power, ground, and an analog pin. So I've screw terminaled it into there, and those are going to 3.3 volts, ground, and A0 on my Feather. And then I wanted some NeoPixels to control, so I have those going to a ground, power, and digital pin over on the top side of the board there. I'll coil these up so you can see these. And then the extra things plugged in on top there because I wanted to use one of these, right? How are you going to plug one of these into your feather project? Well, this is kind of a nice way to do it. It may not end up being your final way. You may end up soldering stuff to boards, or it just may well be, depending on your needs. This is going to be secure enough, so long as you're not yanking on these wires a lot, to stay put, and it's a lot more secure than something like a breadboard. In this case, I put, on the NeoPixel, I put some wire ferrules and crimped them down so that those have a really nice connection in there. And so if I plug this in this case I'm just powering the feather, now I have the nice on-off switch that I can turn on, and it's going to light up my little demo there. So I've got the NeoPixels plugged in, I've got the analog throttle plugged in, which I've got controlling the red component of the RGB LEDs, so it goes from a sort of pale blue through cyan up into a sort of magenta as I use that. And then I also have some controls here with the D-pad, just lighting different numbers of LEDs on here depending on which buttons I press. And so for whatever you're prototyping, or maybe even, like I said, your final product, you may just want to plug into something like the screw terminal FeatherWing. I love them. I think they're great. This is also an idea that I'd seen in the arcade cabinet world. So there's a lot of breakout boards for getting all the bazillions of buttons and joysticks and things on the input side, and maybe cabinet lights and speakers and such on the output side, somehow talking to a controller board. And this is one that you'll often see in things like arcade cabinet builds, is these really nice robust screw terminals. Just to demo that, if I take the power off and pull out the connector there for a second, you can see if, let's say, I want to disconnect the analog pin there and use a different pin, it's as simple as going and setting that wire in there, getting a nice little screwdriver, screw that down, good and snug. Like I said, stranded wire works really well. And now it would take a decent amount of tugging on there to come out. So not as secure as a soldered connection would be, but also much more secure than something like a breadboard. So let's see, let's hop over to the page for that for a second. If you're wondering where to go, you can go to that URL right there. And that will take you to this page right here. There we have the assembled terminal block breakout. Like I said, we don't sell the kit version anymore. I don't know if the price changed. I think it's the same cost. It's just you don't have to do any soldering when you get it. Like Lady Ada said, this makes a lot of sense for people who want to have a plug and play experience. You can buy a lot of our different feathers pre-assembled with the header pins on them. And so if you buy that and this terminal block, you have a really nice way to put a project together. This also has I believe we have a little learn guide on this that'll tell you about the pinouts on it, where things go, a little diagram. It also has an assembly section that doesn't actually matter anymore because we're not asking you to solder those onto there. And we also have a number of projects in our learn guide that use these. Here's an example, the MIDI power glove. I used that on this, and if you look at, let's see, I think on the power glove section, you'll see how I used this. I had a bunch of space in the power glove to connect my Bluefruit feather, and I had a bunch of things like the strain relief or force sense resistors, bend sensors in the fingers to connect to. And so I, down at the base here, have, let's see, there's a nice picture of it. I have a lot of wiring going into this, can't see it too well here, as well as battery still fits because this is elevated above the terminals by a little bit. And there are other projects in there. So I think these are great. I love them. I encourage you to go check these out. And what else? I think that's going to do it. Let me see if there's any questions over in the various chats. Let me pop open my Discord and I'll take a look at the YouTube chat there. if I can find it. Where did I move my, there's my Discord. Susan's not sure I connected enough stuff to this feather. That's right, look at all the extra room there. We have plenty to go. And you also, depending on the feather, you've also got some other connectors you can use, such as the Stemma QT I2C. On some boards, you don't. On some earlier feathers, like a Feather M4, there's not an I2C Stemma QT connector, but you can use the serial clock and serial data, power and ground on the actual FeatherWing, terminal FeatherWing. In fact, let me move those out of the way here. And you'll see those are even indicated on some of these. We've got serial clock, serial clock here, RX, TX, some of the SPI. That's the clock for serial right there. You have serial clock and serial data, which are the I2C listed here. So a lot of these are visible right on the silk screen of the board there. Let's see. I think that's it. Any other questions? Let me know. Otherwise, we'll wrap that up. So I'm just going to go back to the original page and refresh it, make sure these are still in stock. Here we go. There it is right there. Yeah, so $7.48 today, just during the show. So if you want to get these, throw them in your cart. We still have them in stock. You can get up to 10 of them. And you don't need a coupon code. Just buy it before the show ends or within a few minutes and you'll be good. Otherwise, the price will automatically go back to the full price in a little bit. So let's go ahead. Before I close it out, I'm going to add a little hanger wire, which is pretty easy on this one. Let me go to my overhead. Do that. Fix that focus a little. There we go. So you can see here, I like, in fact, we've had terminals with Phillips, or more truthfully, we've had the ones that are Phillips and flathead, so they have one long side and one short side of that cross in the past. Right now, these are just straight up flathead, which I know I prefer, because you don't slip. Phillips is made to slip out of those, and you really just want to get the screwdriver to bite nicely into that. Like I say, use the ferrules, wire ferrules, crimp connectors if you want to make sure you got no stray wires, because those can be a real bummer, or twist that wire fairly well before you put it in and screw that down. There you go. Now we've got a little built-in hang tag there. So let's jump back here and finish it up. That is my product pick of the week. It is the terminal block FeatherWing. That's going to do it for me for today. This has been John Park for JP's product pick of the week. That's what it's called. And I will see you soon. We've got a bunch of shows coming up. Shows on Wednesday include 3D Hangouts, Ask an Engineer, Show and Tell. I'll be back with John Park's Workshop on Thursday, and we have Deep Dive with Foamy Guy, Tim C on Friday. And I hope I didn't miss any there. All right, thanks everyone. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.